Hey, what's going on, guys? Today's topic is, are snakes better than lizards? There's controversy going back and forth on which animal is better, which one is easier to take care of, and today we're going to talk about that. I'm James, guys, and you are watching Blue Dog Reptiles. Now let's start with something as simple as a bearded dragon. Let's talk about their overall requirements. So this is an adult bearded dragon. He's a male, and apparently he is comfy being wedged in that little spot there. I don't know why. We also have the girl down here. She is a lot more attentive and a lot more active, but the thing with these guys is they require constant attention. They require basking spots. They require UVB. They require insects. They require lettuce. They require a constant observation. Yes, we are talking about you. Isn't that right? You're so cute. Snakes, like our motley raptor boa here, don't really care about anything. As long as they have heat and water, they could care less about anything. They do require different size enclosures depending on what species of snake you go with. And then their diets can vary again depending on the species. But let's start with the feeding aspect. Are snakes better than lizards? So let's start with the lizard. So something like a bearded dragon here, they are going to be eating insects. Obviously, as an adult, they're not eating insects as often, but they do require insects and they do require greens. And what can happen with the greens as they get old, and this is only 2 days, is they dry out. So they do nothing for the nutrients of the dragon. So you have to constantly change that out. You have to constantly keep up on it, unless you do a bioactive, and then your bioactive bugs will take care of it all. And a bearded dragon here, so they're going to eat greens daily as an adult, but then with their insects, typically it's only every 3 to 4 days. So at least once a day, you're in there at least changing greens out. But with insects, like I said, they're only eating every 3 to 4 days. Now, snakes, depending on their age, dictates how often they eat. Boas, for example, this girl right here is only eating once a week. Now, she eats a pup rat, so you're not in her enclosure every single day. Now, they are a tropical species, so if you equipped like misting heads, it removes a lot of the work that goes into it. And at least once a week when you're feeding, you can change their water and any waste, unless, again, you're doing bioactive. So is the snake better than a lizard when it comes to food? Yes, I say that the snake actually wins. They're eating less often and they're only eating one meal. And some snakes as adults, so like when this girl is an adult, she'll only be eating about every 3 to 4 weeks. So she wins. Now let's talk about enclosure size. Who wins, snakes or lizards? Now, this is kind of controversy going back and forth because people don't know all the rules and stipulations that go in with properly housing things like dragons or snakes. Now, an adult bearded dragon, at minimum, should be, and we're going to go off of that. We're going to go off of adults. We're not going to go off of babies because, of course, a baby is going to be in a lot smaller enclosure. But let's go with adults in this. An adult bearded dragon will be in something like a 4x2x2 enclosure or a 75 or 120 gallon aquarium. That is a massive setup because they need the space because they're constantly moving. Like this girly here, aren't you so cute? Versus a snake. Now, as I said, we're talking about adults, and this girly here is obviously a baby. So she's not in her forever setup. Central American boas can typically hit 6 to 10 foot, with on average of them being between 6 and 8. they need a massive enclosure. And what people don't realize is that a good rule of thumb is that you should do length times width. So if your snake can go down the length of the tank and across, the enclosure is too small for it. Now, arboreal snakes, they fall underneath different rules, length times width times height, but we're not going to talk about them today. So as an adult boa, being 6 to 8 feet, they're typically going to be in a 150 to 200 gallon setup. A lot of boas spend more, they are semi-arboreal as babies, but as adults, they spend a lot more time on the ground. I mean, I could imagine dragging all that weight everywhere. It's just easier to stay on the ground. And this one specifically, look at it. You can see, I mean, it's on the ground. But which one is going to be better? Well, snake or lizard? Well, they're going to be, the snake is actually going to lose on this one because, and we're just going to cover a boa on this and not, because there's so many different variations and sizes of different snakes. They are one of the larger ones that are legal in a lot of states versus, like, I know retics and Burmese, they get monstrous. But boas are one of those that a lot of people keep. So as far as cost effective, the lizard is going to, or the dragon here is going to be a lot more cost effective when it comes to forever enclosure. It's going to be smaller than what a boa would need. Next up is lighting. Which one is cheaper? I'm going to tell you flat out right now, it's going to be the snake. And that's because bearded dragons need both UVB and a basking spot. Snakes do not. Snakes are perfectly content living in a drawer. I'm not saying keep them in a drawer, but I'm saying that as long as they have a heat source, they're content. Whether that's a heat pad, a heat dome. Now, do I say that UVB is beneficial to snakes? Yes, 100%. Is it required for them? No. So the snake is going to win when it comes to overall cost effective of lighting. And finally, we're going to talk about overall cost. Which one is cheaper? Now, depending on, again, we're going to stick with just adulthood. We're not going to stick with babies and all that, because obviously every different species of reptile is going to go through a couple of different enclosures throughout their life. So which one is going to be more costly overall? And your bearded dragon, for a full-size setup with lighting and everything like that and decor, on average, and counting the cost of the dragon, you're going to look about $700 to $1,000. A full-size snake is typically going to be more than that. You're going to be looking about probably twice that, and that's because a lot of boas, depending on this one right here in particular, is a rare boa, and so she's got a price tag of like $700. But most of your boas actually can only cost about $150 to $200. They're not that expensive, but as adults, they are taking on a much bigger home, and so the overall cost of a boa is going to be a lot more expensive than your bearded dragon. Now, upkeep, the boa wins because the boa is a lot less upkeep than a bearded dragon. And finally, let's talk about handleability. Handleability comes by a couple of different things. How much the animal is worked with. I've known bearded dragons like Tubbs here. That is the sweetest thing ever. Absolutely loves being handled. But you have things like this girl here that does not like being handled and is actually the first bearded dragon to bite me. So, guys just missed it a second ago. This boy was actually doing a little bit of head bobbing. Oh, I'm stretching my mouth. But you can see how black his beard is right now. They are coming up into breeding season, so his attitude's definitely going to change. But overall, which one is a lot more handleable? Would it be a lizard or a snake? versus our snake here. So boas, it all dictates on how much they're worked with. If they're not worked with, I've known many boas that don't like to be handled, don't like to be touched, they'll bite. But same can be said for dragons. If they're left alone, they can come out with aggression. It's just how it is. So I would say personally, it's probably a tie between the two. But yeah, let me know in the comments which one you guys think wins. Do you think that the snakes are better than lizards, or do you think lizards are better than snakes? As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. Thank you to all the new subscribers. And thank you to everybody for the fan mail. We really appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time.